Hey everyone, this is a video of me trying to explain my process when drawing portraits. I'll give you some tips on improving your drawings in general as well. Here are some examples of my work that I've achieved through a lot of practice, patience, and pushing myself out of my comfort zone. I hope you find this tutorial informative and useful to follow along with. The materials I like to use when sketching a portrait include smooth cartridge paper, but today I'll just be using my A4 hardback sketchbook. Both of these I had bought from Hobbycraft, and I prefer the paper in them as it's a lot thicker and more durable when rubbing out pencil marks, although you can just use any paper you have at home. The pencils I use are mechanical pencils. I'd only started using these recently, but I prefer them to regular pencils as they create sharper lines and don't go blunt. But you can totally use any pencils you have at home. I also use a rubber. The first thing I do is pick a reference. It's really good to use pictures you've taken yourself to add to the originality, but a reference from off the internet can work just as well. I start with a circle and some lines to define where the head and face will be placed. It's important to get the placement right at the start as you don't want to drastically change anything later. This is what you call composition. This is very important in art as it gives layout and structure to each piece. No matter what you're drawing, it really helps to create basic lines and shapes to help you achieve how you want the artwork to be perceived. I then draw a line roughly down the middle of the face for symmetry, and then add more lines horizontally where I can see the hairline, eyebrows, eyes, nose and mouth are placed. To draw them in, I'm always comparing the space between the features with the reference to avoid making any unnatural placements or accidentally making anything too big or too small. It helps to use a finger and your pencil to measure distances, sizes or angles more accurately. Some general rules of proportion that are useful to learn are that the eyes are halfway between the top of the skull and the chin. You can also split the face into thirds between the hairline, eyebrow line, bottom of the nose and the chin. The eyes are one width apart, the inner corner of the eye lines up with the sides of the nostrils, and lastly the ears usually meet the brow line to the bottom of the nose. However, not all of these rules will reflect the reference, so keep this in mind as people have different facial structures. If you don't like to draw with this method, another method that I like to use is called the grid method, by making reasonable sized squares on the reference and using maths to translate the measurements to a bigger or smaller piece of paper so it has the same amount of squares. But when drawing without a grid, remember to keep checking back to your reference to really make sure your drawing has the correct proportions and captures the features accurately. This composition, proportions and lines all help to build up a realistic and accurate portrait. After completing the basic construction lines and outline of the features, my preferred style when finishing a sketch is to use cross-hatching and hatching pencil techniques to shade and add definition to the piece, as well as some curved lines to accentuate features and highlights. Sometimes I use a rubber to add highlights. This is usually around the brow bone, cheekbones, tip of the nose, the lips, forehead, eyes and chin. So pay special attention where the light shines the most on the reference. I always use a darker pencil to deepen important lines and shadows, whilst rubbing out some proportion lines, but some I personally like to keep in, as I like the feeling it gives a portrait. I encourage you to experiment with more pencil techniques and be open-minded to different styles to find what you like the most. So remember to learn the basic proportions, as it will really help improve your drawings of portraits. With a lot of practice, you're guaranteed to gain more skill, experience and confidence when drawing. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.